Yo, the Raider Nation, it's your boy Dub Raider. Welcome to another episode of the Raider Nation Roll Call. As always, I try to bring you the best, the most important, at least in my eyes and in the Raider Nation's eyes, content creators, super fans, everybody that makes up the Raider Nation. Today, I have a special guest, one of the members of the War Room, 805 Raider. My brother, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. I know life is very busy, but you took a little bit of time to come and speak with us, and I truly appreciate it, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm good, and I appreciate you letting me come on, man. I definitely love, honestly, I'll say it first and foremost, I love what you do, just kind of reaching out to the Raider fan base, some of the people that are in this space, and kind of giving them the opportunity to kind of get out of the day in and day out of just strictly Raider talk and kind of get to know the person, that's kind of behind whether it be a super fan, content creator, or what have you. You just give them an opportunity to kind of see the behind the scenes. And so I appreciate it. I think what you're doing is good work, man. So man, keep it up, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, man. I know you and the rest of the crew, Chris, Severe, you guys have a fire show. You know, you guys talk, Raider football, the X's and O's. And what I want to do, and like I tell every guest that I have, is I like to talk about the individuals behind the scenes, the Raider fan, and let the Raider Nation know who you are, what you do, you know, and how all this started for you. So let's jump in. First question, how did you become a Raider fan?
So it's actually really interesting, right? My parents, my entire extended family, they're all 49er fans. So they're all from the Bay Area. So they're all from, my dad was born and raised in Cupertino. My mom was on the east side of San Jose. Okay. And so they're all 49er fans, diehard. And so when I was born, I saw that red and gold. And so as time was going on, I followed the 49ers. But what happened is when I was about 9 years old, two of my favorite players that played on the Raiders, which was Roger Craig and Ronnie Lott, they actually transferred over to the Raiders for 1 year. They got signed by the Raiders. They were with the Raiders for one season. I think that was the 90, was it 91? I think it was 91.
Right.
Those were my favorite players on the 49ers. And so, because as a youth kid, I played running back and linebacker, and Ronnie Lott played like a linebacker, right? He was the big hitter. And so I loved watching him. And when they both moved over to the Raiders, I wanted to start following them, but then in turn, it got me watching Raider games. And one of my best friends, until this day, I played football with him for years upon years. He was a diehard Raider fan. And so when him and I got together and I was like, hey, can I watch the Raider game with you? Because Ronnie Lott and Roger Craig are now over there. Can I go watch? And we just linked up. And next thing you know, I just started following the Raiders. And from that point forward, you saw the fan base. Right. You saw how rowdy they were. You just saw how they were. And it just attracted me instantly. So from that day forward, I basically became a Raider fan. So I'm going to be 42 this year. So from the age of 9 years old, I basically rocked the silver and black.
That is awesome, man.
And
what did your family think?
They have, till this day, they give me shit. Till this day.
I bet. And
it doesn't matter if it's aunts, uncles, the whole nine. We are a very close, tight-knit family. We love each other. But when it comes to football talk, the moment silver and black and Niners come up, yeah, we definitely see our differences. But
oh man,
but yeah, no, they almost shunned me for a second, but they let me come back in. So
yeah, that's cool, man. You know, it's always good when there's a rivalry within the family. You know, it makes get-togethers interesting, I think.
It does. And the Raiders and Niners, when they played each other 2 seasons ago out here in Vegas,
right?
They all came into town. So we were going to try to get to the game, and we just couldn't make it with all of us.
Right.
And so, but they came into town because the Raiders and Niners were playing, and we actually went to Mandalay and watched it all together. And so getting together and watching it, actually I have a bunch of family in Hawaii that actually flew in.
Oh, nice.
Because they're all diehard 49er fans. So they flew in, and we all just watched it together. So it was
That's
cool.
Awesome, man. Yeah. That is awesome.
It was a hell of a game.
I wanted to get a little backstory on obviously you as a Raider fan, but also your knowledge of football. Because obviously I watched the War Room.
Yeah.
You, Kristen Severe, you seem to have vast knowledge in football. Where does that come from?
So just to start out, so I played the game for 15 years. So I have
No
15
way.
years of playing experience, but I also have 23 years of coaching the game. I started out at the youth
What?
level and moved up to the high school level. And so that's where it starts. And, you know, I felt like coaching was going to be what I was going to do.
Right.
But I'll be dead honest. I'm also very, very dedicated to my family. And that's kind of what took me away from coaching, to be honest with you.
Gotcha.
When I went to the high school level, it just took up so much of my time, but I couldn't get away from it. Where I was born and raised in Ventura County, hence the 805. When I coached the youth levels and moved up to the high school levels, I created a community of families, of generations that were playing football. You know, I started coaching young kids and then coaching the high school, and then I would see their younger brothers come up through, you know, high school, and you just create a very tight-knit community.
Right.
And I just felt like that was going to be my calling. And I ended up moving from California to Texas, and I continued to coach football in Texas. And, you know, I'll tell you right now, when you talk about winning is everything in Texas, I think they coined that term, because the amount of just dedication and the levels they go to in Texas to win is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's a different level over there, huh?
It's formatted differently. Let's put it that way. It's not that it's more intense than California or what have you, but it's the mentality is different. The way they approach football, even at the youth level, is very different. It's win at all costs. Winning is everything. But
Gotcha.
But I coached for so long, and it came to a point that I knew this wasn't going to be what I wanted to do. You know, I have my daytime job. I've been with my job for 17 years, and they have helped me create a great life for my family. So, you know, I do this as a for fun, to be honest. But I stepped away from coaching because I wanted to give my wife and my girls more time. I have 3 little ones at home, or one of them's much older now. But at the time, you know, I had 3 kids, my wife, and it came to a point where I knew this wasn't going to be my long-term goal. This wasn't going to be a lifelong thing. And I said, look, ever since meeting my wife, our schedule evolved around work, our kids, and football. That was it, you know? And so it was time for me to give her time. And it was time for me to just pour more time back into my kids. And so I stopped. And that's kind of where, you know, my football knowledge comes from, is from the 15 years of playing it and the 23 years of coaching the game, and just the passion that I had. My wife, when I coached it, she was like, you didn't have a day off. I coached it 7 days a week. It was practice, it's coaches meetings, it's preparation, it's the whole nine. Real quick funny story is, when we first met, she never really understood just how intense, 1, football coaching is, but 2, how I took it. And there was times where she'd walk in the room 4 hours later, and she's like, is that the same game film you've been watching for the last 4 hours? And I said, yeah. And she's like, how many times have you watched this? So like, this is probably my 10th time. She's like, why are you watching it 10 times over? It's like, because you never know if you're going to miss something. And so that's just kind of how I was. And she learned to understand that side, because more people would talk to her about it, and just how much they appreciated what I did and the dedication I had to it. Because I never had a kid in the system. I never coached my own kid.
Right.
And so, you know, I always did it just because I had the love for the game and the passion for it. And because I put that much time and effort into it, it came to a point where I said, you know what? It's time for me to wipe my hands of it. Time for me to stop and give more time for my wife, give more time for my kids. And that was in 2019.
That must have been hard though, no?
It was extremely hard. It wasn't as hard as if I was in California. If I was still coaching in California, it would have been extremely hard, because the community that I created there and had, the surrounding that I had, that would have been extremely hard, because one of the guys that brought me up to the high school level to coach was my defensive coordinator when I played in high school. So when he knew I was coaching, he called me and said, hey, take over my defense. And I said, okay, cool, I'm coming in. And so it was a tight-knit community. When I moved to Texas, I created a very tight-knit community in Texas, but it wasn't as deep as I had in California. So to
Yeah, those
walk,
were your roots.
yeah, so to walk away from it in Texas was hard because it was walking away
Oh.
from the game in that aspect, but it wasn't as hard if it was back in California. If I was in California, to be honest, I'd still be, there's a good chance I'd still be coaching. So I'm
Well, you
just,
know what? Let's be thankful that you didn't, because if you were still coaching, we wouldn't have you right here today.
I would not be doing this. You're 100%
And
correct.
let me tell you, the Raider Nation really appreciates you, man. Appreciates everything you put out there, all your content. It's amazing. You know,
Appreciate
the information that you set forth is very informing, very educational for us that are, not at your guys' level. So but we learn a lot, definitely.
I appreciate it.
The next question I was going to ask you, you basically already answered. Who was your favorite Raider? Which is, I'm assuming, Ronnie Lott and.
Well, those were the guys that got me hooked. Right?
Oh, okay.
And hooked over to the Raiders. My favorite Raider of all time probably is Tim Brown.
Timmy Brown. Okay, 81.
I'm more of a defensive guy.
Uh-huh.
Majority of my life I played defense, but I think the reason why Tim Brown is one, I love Tim Brown as a player. But little backstory, when I moved to Texas, I moved to basically the northeast end of Texas, about 30 minutes north of Dallas.
Okay.
And Dallas is a hub of sports. I mean, you got basketball, baseball, everything. Obviously, you got the Cowboys, but they have also a lot of feeder teams that go to the big leagues, and
Gotcha.
so there's nothing but sports everywhere. But obviously, there's never a day in hell that I'd support a Cowboy game, right? So I wanted to find some sports to get into, and obviously raising kids in that area. And I come to find out, about 20 minutes away from my house was a pro indoor football team, which was called the Texas Revolution.
Oh, okay.
And I said, okay, it's a pro indoor team. Let me go check it out. It's football, it's not the Cowboys, so I'll go check it out. Come to find out, Tim Brown was the general manager of that team.
No way.
Tim Brown was born and raised in DeSoto, Texas, and so he was nearby. And as soon as I found out Tim Brown was the GM, I said, sold, locked in, bought season tickets. I'm supporting. And I ended up, because I was coaching out there at the time, I ended up started putting on some events in there to help them out. And I got to know Tim Brown a little bit. And
Awesome.
I got to bring my family in and go to a game, and they all met Tim Brown and all that. So, with that experience and be able to meet him and have, a handful of just engagements with him, he went 100%. Ended up being, not only was I a huge fan of him when he played for the Raiders, he ultimately became my favorite Raider just because of the person that he is, and just the kind of, I'd say, a little tiny friendship that we had with my time in Texas. So it was
great,
really cool,
man. So my assumption is this happened after he retired, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
okay.
This was I started. This was probably in 2016. 2016 was when because I moved to Texas in 2015. In 2016, I started coaching, and then got involved with the community, and found out that he was the general manager of the Texas Revolution, and
Dude, that is so awesome.
Started that chapter of my life. So it was
so
cool.
Awesome. So Tim Brown, your favorite Raider. That's great, man. That's definitely a great player to have as your favorite. I think he's one of the greats, one of the ones I got to see many a times play. He's definitely one of my top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome, man. Next question.
Yeah.
How long have you been a fan, from like the moment you said I'm a Raider till now? How many years has it been?
It's got to be, I guess, I'm not the biggest math person, but I guess, when Ronnie Lott and Tim Brown came over to the Raiders, and I started to kind of understand what the Raiders were, I want to say I probably became a true fan probably by the age of 10. So
okay,
let's do easy math. So it's basically been 32 years. I'm going to be 52. So 32 years.
Wow. Hey, man. So you've seen it all. You've seen the good and all the bad.
Yeah, no, exactly. I've been through the ringer a little bit. And so, and the one thing I'll add is I'm trying to raise 3 Raider fans as well with my young kids, and it is not easy to do.
It's not, man. It's not. I think it's very difficult to have your kids following your footsteps when your team keeps on losing. They give you no reason for them to.
It's hard, and I have had to manipulate them like crazy, and I have my tactics. So, and I've shared this on lives a couple times, and people actually get a crack out of it because they're like, hey, I got to implement that in my life with my kids. And so it is hard. And so one thing, every season opening kickoff weekend, they get their t-shirts for the season. So I'll put 3 t-shirts where they eat at the dinner table, and I'll go get donuts. And so for the opening season, they get their shirts and their donuts, and then during the game, I have a big old pot of candy in our pantry. And so if the Raiders score a touchdown, they get to go pick a piece of candy.
Oh.
And if they win a game, I go take them to go get ice cream.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's like
good motivation.
Exactly. So they'll start asking me, are the Raiders playing? Because they now know it's not necessarily that they're going to win. It's more about I get some candy, or if they do win, I get to go get some ice cream. And so that's kind of been my way to be able to kind of get them involved and just be happy that the Raiders are playing. Yeah, they have not won very much at all. But then it's also taking them out to events, trying to get them involved, just understanding just what Raider Nation's about and just how dedicated and how fun it can be in that environment.
It definitely is.
So, but I have my tactics on because I almost lost my middle one to the whole Taylor Swift stuff. Almost.
Oh, to the Chiefs?
Man, she started asking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and blah, blah. I'm like, don't. And she started asking, are the Chiefs playing? I'm like, don't do it. But what was great, it was perfect timing. As she was starting to kind of talk about it, we kicked the shit out of them on Christmas Day.
Christmas miracle.
Brought her back. So I was like, that's what happens. You try to go that way, we beat them up, and brought her back. So it was good. It was perfect.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, for me, for my son, he's 7. Obviously he sees everything. I have my little man cave set up with all my Raider gear. I go to autograph signings, I go to games, have obviously a lot of friends within the Raider Nation. And so he kind of like took interest because he was intrigued. He's like, Daddy, why do you always wear black? Daddy, why do you always wear a Raider hat? Daddy, why do you always go to games? Daddy this, Daddy that. So like I was telling you earlier, we started taking him to preseason games, having him watch the games. He also started playing Madden on the PS3, I think, that we have. And he got to meet a couple of super fans, and he was in awe of them. He's like, wow, they dress up and they have cool costumes and stuff like that. So now he became a little super fan. My wife actually made a little suit for him. He's a little skater dude, so we created a character called Skater Raider. So he wears a mask and a helmet.
You've posted pictures, right?
Yes, I did.
I've seen them. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and we took him to a Raider game here in LA when they played. I don't know if it was the Rams or the Chargers, and everybody just gravitated to him. And he was like, whoa, this is awesome. Like this is what the Raiders is. I'm like, yeah, this is part of it. And after that, he was in 100%. Awesome. He's like, hey, Daddy, when you don't like the Raiders anymore, can I have all your stuff? Can I have your helmets? Can I have your autographs? And I'm like, all this is yours, man. I'm just.
You can hear.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm borrowing it. This is yours in the long term, and I love it, man. I love it. Awesome. Having those trips to Vegas as a family, it's one of the greatest experiences I've had, other than obviously being with the Raider Nation.
Yeah, the only experience I wish I could have brought my kids to is a tailgate in Oakland.
Oh,
that's one thing I wish I could have done. Obviously, I started going to games when I was 18 years old. I went to one game when I was younger, but when I was 18, I could finally kind of go up to Oakland on my own and all that stuff. I started going to games, and for the longest time, even up until this day, me and my 3 best friends, we pick a home game. We go every single year.
Awesome.
And so even when I moved to Texas, I'd fly into Oakland or San Francisco, and then we'd, take the BART in, and we'd always pick a home game to go to. And so we always did it. And I would always tell myself, I want to bring my kids to an Oakland Raider tailgate, so they could really feel it. They know it. They just understand just how passionate this fan base is. And unfortunately, I was never able to do it. And it's going to be hard to see Vegas ever getting to that level again.
Well, what I recommend what you can do is bring them to an LA game.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's I think the closest thing we're ever going to get to an Oakland tailgate is going to be here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. I could agree. I haven't been to one since moving here to the Vegas area. Moved here in 2020, so I haven't been 2-1 yet in at SoFi.
Yes.
And, yeah, I could imagine that. Yeah, I've heard some good things about the tailgate.
Oh yeah, man. We lose a game, we win the tailgate.
Exactly.
That's for
It may
sure.
not
Oh
feel-
yeah, man. We take over that place. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love the games here, especially being able again to take my son and have him see that in comparisons to what's in Las Vegas. Obviously, Las Vegas is still in the works, but he gets to see at least a small portion of what Oakland used to be.
I agree, and that's the biggest thing is the closest thing here would be when we play the Chargers.
Yes.
Closest you'll get to just maybe 20% of what that Oakland tailgate looked like. Now, it fell off last year because we weren't in the best shape that last game last year. I think it was just obviously a bad season, but that's
right.
But I think here the closest thing we'll ever get is against the whenever we play the Chargers at home.
Yes. Yeah, that's
probably
it. As long as it's early on in the season, I think. If we're losing.
Yeah. Yeah, early on the season where everybody's still motivated. You know what I'm
yes.
saying?
Yeah, because my wife and I went to that last game last year, and man, it was sad. It was sad. You know, the Raider Nation diehards, they were there.
Yep.
They were tailgating. They were having a good time. They were cheering on the team, but it was sad sitting in that stadium and seeing all those empty seats. Yeah. Obviously, there was more silver and black in the seats than there were Charger fans, but it was still pretty empty.
It was empty because Charger fans don't show up anyways, and because they didn't show up this time, it was just empty.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I'm with you, man.
It was sad, but you know what? Win, lose or tie, my friend. Win, lose or tie.
100%. Bring it up, start them, bench them, cut them in their prime. All right, let's go. It's another running back one. All right, Sean McCoy, done. Chris Johnson.
I'm being biased on this one.
Don't be biased. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I gotta do it.
Let's see. All right, we're gonna talk. We're gonna go free agents in a second. What is it?
I think I got it. I think
you got it. All right, chat. What you think? Taddy's the first one in. Taddy's ACB. All right, okay, ACB. Remember, this is all in their prime, not front end, not back end of their careers, in their prime. Jason Downs, your ACB. So you got LaShawn.
I got mine too.
Chris Johnson, Dunmore Dunn, Taino. You got ACB.
All right. Your next question. Okay, how did you become a content creator?
So this is actually an interesting story because it kind of falls back to when I stopped coaching.
Oh.
You know, when I stopped coaching, it's funny when we moved to Texas in 2015, I told my wife I'd take a year off of coaching. Because we're new to Texas, we moved to Texas. And it was just us. It was my wife, my 2 kids at the time. We had a third out there, and I said, I'm going to take a year off, and we're going to, as a family, figure this area out because we were brand new to the area. And that didn't last long. I ended up coaching. I'm in Texas. I want to know what Texas football was about. And
right.
I was ready to test my own coaching skills and see how it's like in Texas. And best decision I ever made. I loved it. But so when we moved out here, or when I stopped coaching in 2019, we moved out here. We moved out here because we wanted to be closer to home. And moving here and being next to the Raiders, that's kind of a funny story.
Was it coincidental?
It was basically we wanted to move, but we wanted to move closer to family, but also move to a state with no state income tax because that's what Texas is. And so I kind of somewhat slid under the radar that the Raiders were in Vegas, and she knew they were in Vegas, but she forgot. But she decided on Henderson, which is where we are. And we came out here, looked at the area, and she's like, "Oh, that's right. The Raiders are here." I'm like, "Yeah, and we're moving. Here we go."
I gotcha.
Exactly. So we're here. So, but basically, when we moved here, COVID hit, right?
Right.
And the way that I knew how to meet people and create a community was coaching. And that's why when I coached in Texas, I created a great community. The coaches that I coached with, the parents that I coached their kids, the other coaches that I coached against, create a big community and establish still friends that I have today. You know, just my last birthday, one of the coaches came out, flew out to Vegas, and we hung out, you know, so create a good community. And that's what I wanted to do here. But I knew actually the guy that runs the youth, or I don't know if he runs it, he's part of the youth sports here in Nevada. I coached against him in California. And so when he found out that I was here, he reached out to me and goes, "Hey, you want to coach?" And I was like, "Man, don't do that. don't do that. And he's like, man, I got a spot. I could bring you on my coaching staff. And I was like, I can't. We just moved here. I'm not going to dedicate myself to it.
Right.
And so as time went on, I work remote. My wife doesn't work. She takes care of the kids,
Awesome.
and so it's a good situation. But the only way I knew how to create really a good community is through coaching. And I didn't want to put that commitment on myself again. I didn't want to put that on my wife and kids again, because I knew once I got dialed in, it was over. My time is done. I was so pissed off at Josh McDaniels to the start of the 2023 season. I didn't like the fact that we hired him on.
Not
I
at
was
all.
so mad. I would spend hours with my dad. My dad was involved a lot in my football years and stuff. And, I coached with him a little bit. I'd jump on the phone and, man, we would talk for hours about how much I'm pissed off at the Raiders and we should have done this, we should have done that, and why'd we draft this and whatever.
Right.
And then my buddies, my close friends that I'd go to Raider games with, we'd do the same thing. We'd jump on the phone for hours. I'm sitting there going, let me try to start a community. I was like, maybe I can start something here, because I was also real pissed off that there's Raider fans here, but it's a melting pot of fans.
Right.
It's hard to find fans here. They're here, but it's hard to find them. And my thing is if I could start something, I wanted to start somewhat of a Raider community. I wanted my kids. It goes back to what I said before. I always wanted my kids to go to an Oakland Raider tailgate, right? I wanted them to feel that. I wanted them to understand what that was. And when I took my kids out, it was the opening game against the Saints.
Okay.
Right? Home opener against the Saints. I was like, we're going to go out. We're going to watch the game at somewhere. So we went to a spot down the street from our house to go watch the game. We're all decked out in our Raider stuff. I'm hoping to walk in. There's nothing but Raider fans, nothing but Saints fans.
Right.
Nothing but Saints fans. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I was so excited to bring my family to the city that the Raiders are in. I wanted my kids to feel that. I wanted my kids to see it. And it was nothing.
Yeah, but transplants.
Exactly. And you got to be careful what bar you walk into here, because right down the street from me is a Broncos bar.
What?
I wouldn't know it until I walk into it.
Right.
And so, like, you have bars that are dedicated to other teams here all over the place.
Right.
So you have to be careful what bar you walk into now. And so that stirred me up. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm here in the city of Vegas where my Raiders are. I need to find the Raider fans. And so I tried to follow some people. You just couldn't find it. And so I was like, you know what? I'm so pissed off at what the Raiders are doing. I talk hours upon hours about it with my dad, with my best friends, but I also want to reach out and I want to see if I can find the Raider fans here. So you know what? Let me jump on and do this. And I'm telling you, it was the second week of the 2023 season. It was week 2 when we played, I believe it was the Chargers. It was the moment I had the idea of starting a YouTube channel. I jumped on about 4 days later. And I was like,
No
you know
way.
what? Let me just make a video and just see what it does. I have no experience
Right.
in doing YouTube stuff. I wasn't even on social media. I was on Facebook, and I would,
MySpace.
I'd keep in touch. I didn't have an Instagram. I didn't have a Twitter, none of those. I had a Facebook that I'd keep in touch with old friends and family.
Right.
And I said, let me jump on and let me just talk. Why not? And we'll see what this turns into. And honestly, that's how it started. It started. I started
And
seeing,
was it you alone?
it was just me.
Oh, okay.
It was me.
Damn.
In just I got like a little green sheet that I put behind me with and I just started talking. And I said, you know what? I talk enough about Raiders. Why not come
Right.
on and try to create a community as much as I can and find the Raider fans here? And it just started to grow. And so I kept going and started to meet some good people, met some locals here that are awesome. Obviously was able to meet Chris, and Severe and obviously now meeting yourself. It's like, I'm starting to create a community. Steve, Power Raider, those guys, the TMBC crew out here in Las Vegas.
Yes.
I'm now starting to kind of create that community that I wanted to. And now my kids can go somewhere and they can see a bunch of Raider fans. And now I know where they're at. And now with the platform that I have, maybe they'll come my way. And I could,
Right.
like I was saying, we were talking about before, you knew about the event. We did an event at Barcode Burger last month and had a ton of people show up, which was awesome. And
Yes.
so that was my goal. My goal was, look, I talk enough Raiders. I glue myself to TV 24 hours a day, all throughout the season for Raiders. Why not at least come on here and try to find the Raider community here in Vegas? And I think I'm starting. So that was the goal, and I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah, man, and you're being very successful at it, which is great, because there are a lot of individuals out there in the Raider Nation that have their shows or podcasts, and it's great because I believe the more we have, the more interest we're gonna bring to the Raider Nation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like I mentioned earlier, the thing is about your guys' dynamic, you, Severe, and Chris. It's man, it's amazing. It seems like you guys are three independent puzzle pieces that have come together and have merged perfectly. Because you guys work well with each other. Your conversations, your interactions. It's just so great, very informative, very educational. It's amazing.
I appreciate that. We have gotten a lot of compliments on just how much people enjoy just our interaction, and sometimes we have differences of opinion, but at the same time we allow everybody to kind of get their opinion in, and
Right.
we'll talk back and forth, and basically have that good back and forth to where, and we also interact as much as we can with the chat, and it's difficult. I get it. Now that we're growing a little bit and we see more people in the chat, it makes it difficult, but myself and the rest of the guys, but we try our best to say what's up to everybody and include them in as much as we possibly can, because we 100% appreciate the support that everybody's
Definitely.
given us up to this point.
No, and the thing that you guys do is when you guys incorporate the chat into your show, it makes them feel that they're part of the show. They're not just watching the show; they're part of it. They could comment, they could just say hello, because I know I'm always on your chat. Saying hello to you guys, saying hello to the chat, interacting with the chat. And it's very comforting to know that you guys are taking the time from your program to say hello, to give a shout out, to promo, be like, hey, go check this guy out. He's got his own show, really cool, stuff like that. That makes you feel so more appreciative of what you guys are doing, to incorporate the Raider Nation to your show.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing about us, and especially myself, is I'm not here to necessarily grow. Like I told you, right? I have my full-time job, and my job has allowed me to create a life for my family that I'm grateful for.
Right.
And so I do this for fun. And so
Definitely.
when we do see people come into our chat or what have you, we'll say, hey, go check that guy out. Go check out his content, because at the end of the day, it's good to hear multiple voices.
Right.
I just come with my experience, but it doesn't mean my experience is right. It's just my opinion. And
Cool.
so it's good to hear other people. It's good to hear because I hear all the time. I'm not the end all be all. I hear all the time, takes that are different than mine, that, I sit there and go, because of my experiences, I said, I can see that side and I can see that aspect.
Right.
I could either I have something to say to it, or I'll say, you know what, man, that's a good point. You're right.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Exactly. That's what I told Chris, is like, sometimes I wouldn't agree with what Chris would say, but it would give me another perspective of looking at a particular situation where I thought, one way, he thought another. And I'm like, I don't agree with it, but I respect the fact that he's kind of showing me his point of view.
Yeah.
And I understand it and respect the fact. Sometimes I just disagree with whatever anybody's saying, but sometimes it changes my mind. Like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm thinking about it just on the outer level, when I wasn't thinking about X, Y, and Z that makes whatever topic that we're talking about, makes it factual or makes it be. And that's again what I like about your guys' show, because you guys have your own point of view, never going against each other, but letting each other know, this is what I think and this is why.
And that's the biggest thing, is it's having your opinion or your take, but also doing your best to explain it.
Right.
That was my biggest thing when I played football, is you have to learn. If you're never going to get better if you don't learn, and you always have to understand that someone can have a different perspective and be open to that perspective, because if you don't allow other perspectives to come in, you're not going to be able to get all angles, but also know the game enough in your own right to be able to try to understand that perspective.
Right.
But it's also being able to explain it, because I always took this, and the reason why I was able to find some good success coaching wise is because I always took every single year that I started. I'd have repeat players that I would have on my roster, but then you'd also have some new players. My biggest thing is I never took that road of, because I have this head coach title or I have this defensive coordinator title, means that I am the voice. I always took it as, I need to gain your respect. And the way that I do it is, it's not by being the loudest guy on the field or being that dictator that's telling you what to do. It's showing by example. So if I do my homework and I tell you, hey, on third down, this team tends to line up in this formation and tends to do this, run this type of play, and all of a sudden, bang, it actually happens. The moment that happens for a player, you instantly gain the respect.
Right.
You instantly, all of a sudden, that player clicks and goes, oh man, coach just told me on third down in this type of situation, in this type of formation, they tend to run this, and it happens. You instantly gain the respect. So it's not about demanding that respect. It's about earning it 100% and gain that respect from others. And so when I linked up with Severe and I linked up with Chris and anybody else I talked to in this platform, it's not about just because I have all this history and experience of coaching and playing. I take that for a grain of salt. What I like to do is basically help explain stuff. And if it resonates with people, great. But if not, if you have a different perspective, it's also my opportunity to learn.
So what you basically do is you do not do the Josh McDaniels.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. And that's great, man. And I think that's what we as viewers and as fans of your show, we appreciate. Is that you're not just saying this is what it is. You're putting your point of view out there and you're explaining it and just letting it resonate. If people agree, great. If they don't, great. It's your point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. The more you can explain and the less questions they have, the better I think they have an opportunity to understand. Right.
Yes.
And so if they walk away with more questions than answers or more questions than responses, then no one really gained anything out of that. And so
that's true.
That's my biggest thing, is if I can help explain it as much as I can, then it helps give them a better picture. And in turn, hopefully there is questions or rebuttal. And then that's when the back and forth can really happen, which is
dialogue, man.
I love it.
Yep. The Raider dialogue. That's the greatest part, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question. What would you advise other Raider fans to become more active in the Raider Nation? Obviously, we need those wins to electrify the fan base, but how can we, as members of the Raider Nation, as content creators, how can we start bringing those people in now and not just those fair weather fans when we're winning?
Oh man, I think it's going to be really difficult because, and I don't want to get too deep into it because, again, like we said before, like I could probably talk for hours, especially on this subject. Obviously winning cures all to an extent, right? Winning cures all. And I'd say this, winning cures all if you weren't in Vegas. Let's put it that way. Because here's the thing about Vegas is that it's such a tourist city that even if we start winning, I think the numbers will change. Instead of it being 80% opposing teams fans and 20% Raiders fans, it might switch. It might switch a little bit. But I think what's really tough is, one, obviously casinos hold a lot of the season tickets, and so they get the high rollers. We have the highest amount of sold tickets per year per game, but we have the least amount of attendance every single game because people don't show up. There's casinos will give it to the high rollers, and they don't even show up,
right?
Because they don't care about the game. And so I think what's really difficult is, yes, winning is going to help without question. It's going to help the culture. It's going to help even some of the younger fans. That it's like the Steph Curry effect. Sometimes there weren't a whole lot of Golden State fans globally, but the moment Steph Curry stepped onto the court and started hitting those half court shots and those amazing shots, all of a sudden now you had younger fan bases coming in and wearing those Steph Curry jerseys.
Right.
I think winning is going to help it. I don't know if it'll ever be Oakland. I don't think it's ever going to be Oakland.
Never.
But the only thing I could say, and then I think is what's going to help, is that, and I said this when I helped Tim Brown and the Texas Revolution, that indoor football team, they're trying to kind of gain their fan base and get the word out. The only thing I could really encourage every fan that's already out there, if you have young kids, if you have nieces, nephews, if you have people that are still of that younger age, try to go to a Raider game. Bring them to a Raider game. Try to go to an event where a Raider player is is there, because one of the biggest things that kind of bring in younger fans, and I've said this for a long time, is player recognition. The
Yes.
moment a young player goes and high fives Max Crosby, they'll remember it for the rest of their life.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
You know, and so that's one of the biggest things that you can do if there's Raiders. Actually, one of the things that I did in Texas was I took some of the kids that I coached down to the Cotton Bowl, because Michael Crabtree, because he's from Texas, went to Texas Tech. Michael Crabtree put on his yearly football camp down there. And so I went down there. Khalil Mack showed up. Derek Carr showed up.
Nice.
There was a bunch of Raider players at the time. Man, I'm forgetting his name. Former running back, but I'm forgetting his name.
McFadden? Oh no.
He was a third string running back.
Okay.
Or number 33, small little scat back. I'm blanking on his name, but he showed up, right? And the players were high fiving Khalil Mack, and there was other players that came, like Von Miller showed up and stuff like that. Was really cool. But they high fived those players, and I guarantee you, those young players, they're able to high five those players, and they'll remember it for the rest of their life. And so, you know, to grow the fan base here, you know, we got our diehard fan base in California, you know, Northern California, up and down the coast. Like, we have our diehard fan base in California.
Right.
If we want to grow the Raider Nation here, you got to have the younger fan base to be able to interact with some of our players. Again, you high five one, they'll remember it for the rest of their life. And that's why
Definitely.
big shout out to Vegas Raider Dad.
Yes.
You know, he does an organization where he brings in families, younger kids that don't have the ability to go into a Raider game. I don't know what the number is, but every single season he's got families, dozens upon dozens of kids that actually get to attend a Raider game for free, which is awesome. And so I've been able to do a fundraiser for him. Anytime that I do something, I try to do a fundraiser for him to kind of give back to his organization, because I think he's trying to do it right. If you can, it may take, 10 years, 15 years for the Raider fan base to grow here, but I think it starts from the ground up. I think you got to get some of the youth, the youth, to kind of go out to a game again, or just have that one-on-one experience. That's why I'll say it again. What Mark Davis did this last offseason by doing that open practice in the Raider Stadium, 2 of them, was one of the best things he could have done.
Most definitely.
I mean, I was able to take my kids to it. I saw a bunch of kids there. You can open up, because the thing about nobody that lives outside of Vegas, for the most part, unless you're diehard fans, right, or locally and can drive in, you're not going to bring your entire family to an open practice.
Right.
Diehard, right? But what's going to happen is you're going to have the local families show up. You might be a fan of a different team, but maybe you're a Jets fan, but you're not like a diehard Jets fan. But you're like, hey, I got an opportunity to go to an open practice for free, bring my kids, do an event. Cool, let's just go.
Right.
It's going to take us that one kid to high five a player that's coming out the locker room, or see that player, and now they might be hooked. And so I think that was the best thing. And that was one of the things I wanted Mark Davis to do, because all they did was hold a practice in the Henderson practice facility, which is not conducive to big crowds. And so,
no, it's not.
And during the summer, it's hot out.
Yes. Horribly hot.
And like, you're not going to go to a practice with a bunch of kids when it's 115 and they're practicing outdoors. That doesn't make any sense.
And then the practices are early in the morning too, right?
They're early in the morning, but shoot, still early in the morning. It's still 97, 98 degrees. And once the sun starts to peak, you better get out the way.
Yes.
But Mark Davis doing that open practice, if he does it continuously, I hope he would do it 2, 3, maybe even 4 times during the off season. I think that's what can change the dynamic. May not be today or tomorrow, but maybe 10, 12 years from now, it could change the dynamic, because now that youth grows up and they got that one experience where they high-fived a player, and now they're hooked. And it's a badass stadium. So
definitely. Yeah, because I actually had a similar experience to how I became a Raider fan, and it was in elementary school back in the 80s. That's when the Raiders had just come to Los Angeles. So it was like early to mid 80s. And one of the teachers at the elementary school I attended somehow knew Lyle Alzado.
Okay.
And she invited him to the school.
Nice.
So, I'm an elementary school kid. I know of football, but, I know of the Rams, I knew of the Chargers.
Yeah.
But, that was really it. I wasn't really following football until Lyle Alzado came to my elementary school. And I saw this monster of a man standing in front of me, shaking my hand, asking me what's my name. And I was like, oh my God. And then fast forward some years when he retired from football and became an actor, I saw him on this TV show called Small Wonder. I don't know if you remember that.
Remember?
It,
Yeah.
it was about this little girl that was a robot or something.
Yeah.
He came out on that and I'm like, I met him.
That's
And that was it, man. That was it. I was sold. And luckily, before the Raiders left Los Angeles, I got to attend a couple of games. I actually got to attend the last game against the Kansas City Chiefs. It was Montana's last game with the Chiefs. It was Marcus Allen's last game with the Chiefs. Obviously, the Raiders' last game in LA. So it was a very memorable experience, even though there was more action in the stands with all the fights than there was on the actual field. But just that just brought me in. It just like sealed the deal, and that's a memory that I will never ever forget.
That goes to my point, and that's how I kind of helped Tim Brown and that indoor football team grow their fan base a little bit. It's all about player recognition.
Oh.
Once you have that experience with a player, it'll never leave you. And so I told them, hey, like, get your players out there, do some meet and greets and do all that, because the moment you can get the youth kids to high five that player, they will want to come see.
Definitely.
And so, or watch them on TV, so I think that's the beginning. I think it's going to take some time to turn this thing around.
Oh, of course.
Because this is a melting pot of fans. Like,
yes,
there was never a professional football team here, in the past. And so it's a melting pot of fans, and just how big or how quickly this area has grown over the last 20, 30 years.
Definitely.
I mean, real quick stories. When we moved here and bought our house, I'm unpacking all my stuff out of the U-Haul, and I'm bringing my boxes, and I had my big flag, my Raider flag, up in my garage. I'm moving all my boxes out. My neighbor across the street walks over and he goes, hey, what's going on? You're the new neighbor? I'm like, yeah, what's happening? And he looked in and he goes, oh, you're a Raider fan, huh? And I'm like, yeah, because I had my big flag up. And I was like, yeah. And I had about 15 boxes because we just moved here. I'm unpacking. I had about 15 boxes in the garage. And I pointed, I'm like, yeah, that's all my Raider stuff in those boxes. And he goes, give me 1 second. He ran across the street, opened up his garage door, and he had a big Chiefs fan flag.
Oh, no.
We were gonna have fun. Like, I was like, hey, at least two games a year we'll be yelling at each other.
Right.
So we had fun with it, but then come to find out, my neighbor next to me on the other side, he's a Chargers fan.
Man,
it's just a melting pot,
Right.
I mean,
Definitely.
everywhere. And so, that's my thing is I think it's gonna take some time. But if you can tap into the younger generations and have them have that player recognition moment, I think that's the start of turning things around a little bit here. But I don't think it'll ever change fully, because this is the most, traveled city in the world.
Yes, definitely.
People are gonna come in and they're going to come in knowing that, hey, I can go watch my team and have a trip in Vegas.
Yeah.
Why not? So
Yeah.
It'll never be open. You get close.
There's also another thing that I've kind of noticed is like the event that you guys did at Barcode. I think creating more events like that during the off season, being for adults or being for families, I think that will also be kind of like a motivator, because I know that TMBC Las last season did something at an elementary school where they brought in some players, they gave them some gifts. There was some super fans there. So the kids got to experience that, firsthand. Yeah, it might not have been current Raider players, but, they were Raider players nonetheless. They got free gifts and all that, kind of like gets ingrained into their mind, like, oh, Raiders did this for me, and I think individuals like yourself that have a platform to do this kind of activities, I think it's definitely a plus for the Raider Nation in Las Vegas to grow exponentially.
I 100% agree, and that's our goal. That was my goal starting this thing, is I need to find the Raider fans. I'm not going to live in the same city as the Raiders and not find the fan base. And so I tried to figure out what's the best way to do it, and also talk a lot of Raiders and have fun with it. And so, and as soon as I pitched the idea to my wife, she said, you have to do it. She said, you have to do it. She goes, you'd be perfect for it. And she said that because she knows, obviously I've dedicated a lot of my life to this game of football. She knows how diehard I am. To your point about my wardrobe is just silver and black.
Yep.
I mean, I have like 26 Raider shirts in my rotation when I do my shirt, my videos and my lives and stuff.
Right.
But that's all I wear. It's silver and black. But she's also said, she goes, look, because my wife was more into social media at the time than I was, and she just watches it, but she knows how brutal people can be.
Right.
Just how brutal the comments can be and how people want to get after you. And she's like, "You're perfect because you have the thickest skin
Thick skin.
I've ever known." She's like, "It'll bounce right off of you." And she goes, "Just don't be sarcastic and be an asshole back." Like, she's like, that's the only thing she was worried about, is me just being sarcastic back. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So, she was just like, look, like, it was perfect. So I did it. But at the same time, I wanted to find the Raider fan base out here. And I think I'm starting something, which is
great. Well, just to let you know, man, you have 100% support from me. Even though I'm over here in Long Beach, whenever I can, if there's a major event that you're going to do, I'll drive down there. I love to go to Vegas. I have family in Vegas and Henderson actually as well. My brother-in-law lives over there, and I'm down to support whatever it takes to make the Raider Nation more of a nation in Las Vegas. I've seen the good and the bad in LA, in Oakland, and I want to see the good in Las Vegas as well.
Yeah, and once they become good, I mean, the support we'll have of the city of Vegas will be crazy. And so
definitely,
when you talk about if we can turn this thing around and the fan base really starts to come out and organically the fan base starts to grow, with people here in Vegas, with the support of Vegas and just the amenities and everything that we have at our disposal.
Oh, most definitely.
It could be pretty exciting.
Most definitely, man.
I'm excited,
I'm excited to see that happen.
Yeah.
All right, our final question. What is your favorite Raider game experience? May it be in Vegas, may it be in Oakland, or an away game? What's your favorite experience?
So it's funny, I actually have 3.
Oh, okay.
And I have 3 only because of, me moving here. And so the first one is, hands down, I was actually at that game when Marshawn Lynch was dancing on the sideline when we were beating the crap out of the Jets. Just thinking about that and talking about it, gives me the chills. I mean, that was what Raider Nation was about. I mean, obviously Marshawn Lynch being diehard Raider Nation from Oakland, and just having that moment, it was almost like the entire nation came together.
Yes.
Whether you liked Marshawn Lynch the way that he was towards the tail end, or what have you, whatever it is, or you like those antics, that was Raider Nation.
Yes.
In that moment, it brought everything together, and that stadium erupted.
Yes, it did.
That was amazing. And so to me, that was an amazing moment. The other great moment was, I had me and my buddies. It was when we were playing the Ravens. Derek Carr hit the game winner to Seth Roberts. He ran an inside slant route up the seam, hit him, game winner. And that was just to know, just to witness that game winner was amazing. And so
I was there.
Yeah, that was a moment. And my last moment was actually, I already told you the story about coming out here. We went out for the Saints game, and it was just empty, right? Even though we won, it was great, but it was it was all Saints basically surrounding the area that we were watching, and I just hated it. One of my favorite moments was when we played the Ravens and we beat them in overtime here. I took my family out. We were going to go watch the game, and there was a lot of Ravens fans in that building. But that game was so intense. That game went back and forth, and then it goes into overtime. And my kids, for the first time in Vegas, were able to be there, where even though there was more Ravens fans, the Raider fans that were there erupted when we hit Zay Jones.
Yes.
And when Derek Carr hit Zay Jones and he catches it, goes in the end zone. I mean, even though, again, we're outnumbered, the Raider fans just started running around that entire area and just started high-fiving. My kids were high-fiving. It was like, that was the moment that I was so happy to be in Vegas, in the city. And I was like, this is what we need. And so obviously still mad that it was more Ravens fans, but to have that moment, and for my kids to have that moment was amazing to me. And
wasn't that the game that there was a couple of plays called back because of penalties?
I think so.
Because they had scored, but then they threw a flag, then it came back, and then they threw another penalty, and then they moved back, and then they threw that long one to Zay Jones and touchdown.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was just an emotional game, and
it was
where my kids were glued to it because everybody was on pins and needles. They were off their feet, and I was standing the whole time. Like my wife and my kids were in the booth, because we're eating at the same time. They're in the booth, and I'm just standing. And the moment we hit Zay Jones and it erupted, I mean, the place went crazy. Raider fans high fiving.
It was amazing.
Again, for my kids to see that and have that moment in Vegas, it was like priceless.
Yes.
So yeah, between Marshawn Lynch dancing, seeing Carr hit the game winner against the Ravens to Seth Roberts, and then that moment in Vegas that's been without question my favorite memories.
That's awesome, man. Those are some great memories. Something that I know is going to live with you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
No matter how our record goes, Chris actually mentioned this when he was down here in LA. When I did the Raider Nation Roll Call interview with him, he's like, we will maybe not remember what the game was about, how the outcome played in the game, but we will remember the memories that we had with the Raider Nation and our Raider friends and family.
Yeah.
You know, that is going to live a lifetime. And it's true. It's true because I can't tell you what happened that day. I think it was the Charger game when Chris was down here. I don't remember what happened, but I do remember hanging out with Chris at the tailgate. I remember taking Chris to Compton, taking Chris to the beach, having some drinks, hanging out. That I will never forget. So that's definitely, I think, a big part of what of being part of the Raider Nation is all about. Obviously, it's football, but it's also the interactions you have with other members of the nation.
It is creating those memories, right? One of the things,
Yes.
and when we moved here to the Vegas area, it was a very spur of the moment decision. So we moved. Obviously, I was born and raised in Southern California, moved to Texas, and then we moved here. And I knew that the Raiders were doing that brick program, that foundation.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about buying one in Texas, but I was on the fence, you know. And when we decided to move here, I instantly bought the brick. And when I bought the brick, I had the opportunity to bring my girls and my kids and my wife, and we were able to take a picture next to the brick. And from this point forward, doesn't matter if they go for a Raider game, doesn't matter if they go for a concert or what have you, it has all their names on it.
They're part of it.
And they will always know it. And it was actually placed perfectly. So when you walk up and there's the shield that's on the ground where the bricks are laid out, we're actually about 10 feet below the very tip of the shield, right in the middle. And so it's like when we took the picture, you have the shield, you have the whole stadium in the background. And so again, from this point forward, it's like they'll always know they have a piece of the stadium. And if they ever go from now until forever, however long it's there, they'll be able to go and take a look at the brick, and their names are on it, and you know they got a piece of that stadium. And so that's another just memory to create, which is awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome, man. All right, brother. Well, thank you for your time. But before we go, let the Raider Nation know where they can find you, the shows that you're doing, things that you're going to be getting into.
Man, I'm 805 Raider. My channel's Real Talk Raider Nation. I've been doing basically my YouTube channel this is going to be going into my third season. I started in the beginning of 2023. And obviously, as we talked, you know, it's just because of my passion and love for the Raiders, and I wanted to kind of get that itch out from coaching, and this is my way of doing it and trying to find the Raider fan base here. But I post my own videos individually as news pops up, so I'll just jump on and post a video. But I also have, and I'm starting to go live with, like you said, in the Raider War Room with my guys, Chris, with Severe, and you know, it's just my way of being able to kind of talk to the Raider Nation and support everybody else that's out there. You know, we talked about it.
Definitely.
I want to be able to support everybody that's out there doing this Raider content stuff, because at the end of the day, it ain't easy. It is not easy. It's damn near a second job, sometimes a full job, depending on how you look at it and how you treat it. But, you know, I've been enjoying the ride, and it wouldn't be the ride that it's been without support from like you and Chris and Severe and all the viewers and other content creators. I enjoy it, man. It's allowed me to get my itch out when it comes to coaching, and I still can, you know, have my time with my wife and my kids, but it's also allowed me to create a community here like I did with coaching. And man, I've been enjoying it. So, I love it. I appreciate you having me on, giving me that opportunity to kind of talk about my history a little bit and why I'm doing this. And I think between what you're doing and how you're growing, man, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun.
It definitely is. You know, even if I have 5 watchers, to me, being able to listen to your story and how you became a Raider fan just makes me appreciate you even more, because now it's not just the X's and O's of football that you're putting out there on a weekly basis, but the individual behind that. You know, why you became who you became and why you're doing what you're doing, the passion and the camaraderie, you know, all that to me is worth, man, it's unbelievable.
I appreciate it.
It's just great. And just to let you guys know, this upcoming season, the War Room and myself, we're going to catch a game together. So we're definitely going to be hanging out in Vegas together. And once we get the date set up, we're definitely going to have a little meet and greet, right?
Absolutely, man. We're going to have meet and greets. You come out, we're all going to link up and have a good time. And
Yes,
we're
sir.
going to continue to do meet and greets. You know, I did one at Barcode Burger last month, which was a success.
Yes.
I want to keep doing it. But man, I'll tell you, anytime you come out, you got to hit me up because
Oh,
we're
definitely,
link
brother,
up
definitely.
and have a good time.
Definitely. Again, I appreciate your time. Raider Nation, thank you. Like, subscribe, follow 805 Raider, Dub Raider. Remember, I got the Raider Nation Roll Call, which is this show. I got the Raider Nation's Weekly Wire with Chris from Protect the Shield. And hopefully soon, we'll have the Stogie Nation with MC Raider. His schedule has been extremely busy. We're trying to get coordinated, but we're definitely going to come out with new programming for that show. Just stay tuned. Again, follow, like, subscribe. And again, Raider Nation, remember, everything we do is for the nation, by the nation. Peace.